I started a football riot. I should explain. I was in the front ensemble of the marching band, also known as the pit, also known as the percussionists who don't want to be bothered with actually, marching in a marching band. It was late in the fourth quarter against our most bitterest of bitter rivals. We had no chance of winning, as we were a fairly shitty team, and they had very good playoff prospects that year. I was with the rest of the pit standing on the track with our instruments right behind the opposing team, literally less than 10 feet behind them. The football players who weren't playing at the moment had set their helmets on the track between us. A cute girl who was also in the pit leaned in close and told me that I should steal one of those helmets. So, of course I did. I slowly pulled it back with my feet. I'm still amazed that none of the players saw me. And we hid it amongst the xylophones, covered with our uniform jackets. All was good. I impressed the cute girl and would soon be a legend amongst the band. And then the player whose helmet I stole had to go back out onto the field. He started yelling for his helmet, looking around frantically, cursing loudly. The crowd behind us, mostly the band, went silent, watching his tirade. Finally, he spotted the mound of jackets, put two and two together, and rushed not me, but a very small, meek pit girl who happened to be the closest to the helmet. I wish I could say that I jumped to her defense and stared down the giant. Seriously, the ducker was 10 feet tall, but I froze and watched his yell at her. It took the band director shouting at the football player from his podium to get him to back away with his helmet. He went onto the field and helped his team score yet another touchdown and won the game. That's when the shit hit the fan. In celebration, the very same player from whom I stole the helmet swiped his own trophy, our mascot's token, an axe. He took the axe into the center of the field, and he and his teammates started dancing, waving the axe overhead. My team saw this and bull rushed the field. An all-out riot began. Punches flying, jerseys torn, me shitting my pants. After it all ended, almost all of our team was suspended for the rest of the season. Didn't much matter to us. The season was almost over. But the other team? Their playoff prospects were shot because several key players were suspended on their team as well. Back in the band hall, the director, who saw everything that I did, gave me a very public shaming. He then took me into his office, shook my hand, and congratulated me on killing their postseason chances. The band saw me as a hero, and I didn't buy a drink the rest of the semester. The cute girl who egged me on in the first place, she ducked my roommate. Well, while I've told this story dozens of times, I've never written it down before. Here goes. Freshman year of college, two of my friends, Josh and Aaron, were sitting in the hallway of their dorm just hanging out. Now there was a guy on their floor that everyone called Joe Cool because he was always wearing sunglasses and a leather jacket. He would always come in late at night, usually pretty drunk. Well, on that night, Joe Cool came in around 3 in the morning. He stumbled over to Josh and Aaron and said, Guys, you've got to help me. The hangover's going to kill me. You got anything to help take the edge off this? Josh just kind of shrugged and said, Nah man, can't help you, sorry. Aaron sat there for a second, then said, Yeah, I think I've got something. He left, leaving Josh to wonder what the hell he had in mind. Aaron came back a few minutes later with something in his hands. In his hands were 3 small pills. One was hot pink, the other was neon green, another was some kind of purple. He handed them over to Joe Cool, who was really appreciative. Dude, you're a saint, man. I really appreciate it. I really do. Aaron started cracking up and went back to looking at his computer. A few minutes later, he sat up. Wait, did Joe walk away with those? Yeah, dude, why? Josh says. Oh shit. Aaron runs after Joe, and Josh follows him. What the hell did you give him, man? I can't tell you, but we need to stop him. They find Joe Cool in the bathroom. He's walking away from the sink, having just guzzled the pills down. Gee, man, thanks again. You're a real lifesaver, you hear? Aaron's face turned blue. Josh was really starting to freak out now. Aaron, is he going to be okay? Dude, I don't know, but we need to watch him tonight. So the two guys found Joe in his room already out cold. They decided to take turns watching him at night. One person sleeping while the other person watches him. A few hours in though, they screw up and both fall asleep. Fast forward to the morning, and Joe's gone when they wake up. Immediately, Josh and Aaron start freaking out. Oh shit, where the hell's Joe Cool? They start looking around, and they eventually find him in the bathroom. He comes walking out of the stall, and his face is beet red. He's obviously been crying. His hair is completely sweaty, and he just nervously cries. Guys, did you see me come in last night? Yeah, I guess, the guy said. Well, did I eat anything weird? I'm not sure, Joe. Why? I don't know what I ate, but I just pooped a T-Rex and a pterodactyl, and I think a stegosaurus. At this point, Aaron just hits the ground laughing. Josh is just sitting there shouting, "What? Aaron, what did you give him?" Eventually, Aaron is able to stop laughing enough to speak, and he finally reveals what was in those pills. Dude, you know how at the toy store you can buy those sponge capsules and you put in the water and they expand into dinosaurs? He just took 3 of them. A group of friends and I were bored one night and lacked drugs and alcohol, so we had to find something to do. Someone threw out the idea that we should try to get into the stadium and onto the field. We figured that'd be pretty fun, but we weren't sure how to do it. One friend said his pal got in through the steam tunnels. I don't know if they have these as other schools, but we have these tunnels running underground that transport steam around or something. They are commonly called the steam tunnels. We all knew the tunnels he was referring to, and that seemed like a solid plan to us. So, the 6 of us grab our jackets and head out in search of a manhole to enter. After finding the manhole closest to the stadium, we begin our adventure. I pried the cover off the hole and we start piling in. 2 people are on the ladder and someone spots some headlights. It was a cop car. I threw the cover back on and we told them to get down and stay quiet. Their first instinct is that we're messing with them, naturally. As soon as the cover was back on, the Mexican of the group is already running out of sight. The other 3 of us casually walked away and called the 2 underground on our phones. They instantly became terrified. 5 or so minutes later, and the area was clear to proceed with our plan. The lid comes off again, and the other 4 of us climb in. As soon as we drop below ground level, there was a major increase in temperature. All the walls around us are hot to the touch, and the air was harder to breathe. Our heavy jackets didn't make the situation any better. From where we were, there were 2 paths to take. We obviously chose the one that went towards the stadium and continued on our journey. The tunnels reminded us of old mine shafts, very thin and short, with dead light bulbs periodically on the ceiling. The walls on either side of us were lined with pipes, probably for the steam. Touching those was a bad idea. After a few minutes of walking in pitch-black tunnels, we came to an intersection of sorts. There was a ladder that led to the surface and another dark tunnel continuing in the direction of the stadium. 3 of us stayed to look out the manhole and see where we were, while the other 3 followed the dark tunnel. One guy climbed up the ladder to lift the cover, but to no avail. Out of the holes of the cover was the starry night sky and not a building in sight. We figured, oh well, and went to catch up with the other 3. As soon as we start down the dark tunnel, they come rushing back with their fingers on their lips, telling us to stay quiet. They looked as if they'd seen a ghost. Worse, they saw cops in the tunnels. They were talking on the radio about some hooligans in the tunnels. Us. We all turned back the way we came in, but there was suddenly the sound of a cover coming off a manhole. At this point, we figured we were boned, as the steam tunnels are major trespassing territory. We go back into the dark tunnel they saw the first cops in. They were gone this time around, thankfully. All of our hearts were racing as we scurried down these hot black tunnels. After numerous turns and maneuvers over pipes, we come to another intersection. We all group under the ladder and climb up one by one. Thankfully, this time the cover came off. We all file out of the hole and look around. Cars are driving by on the nearby street. People are walking on the sidewalks. I have no idea why none of them thought nothing of us. But whatever. We managed to get out of the situation clean, minus some dirt and grime from the tunnels. We're planning on going back next semester when football is all done with. While I was in graduate school, a man I was dating took me to a party at a friend's house. She lived with 2 other women, both undergraduate students, and one of those women, Janet, was celebrating her 21st birthday at the party. One of her gifts was a bag of mushrooms, and she decided she'd chop some up, put them on a salad, to trip in a more healthy fashion. Janet was walking around the party, getting slowly fried, munching her salad in a bowl. The doorbell rang, and she walked over to answer the door, where her parents, grandmother, and youngest brother stood, surprising her for her birthday. They were delighted that she was already dressed up, smiled at everyone at the party, then took her to the best restaurant in our college town. I gather It was a very, very long dinner. I was quite intoxicated at a frat house party once early in college. Some guy started hitting on me, and he says he goes to West Point, not where I attend school. I call bullshit and tell him his hair is too long for West Point. Then he took off his wig. Well, the first time I ever dropped acid, about 2 to 3 paper tabs, I was at my best friend's house. About an hour after taking my dose, they insisted I join their family at dinner. It wouldn't have been unusual for me just to hang out while they ate. I was there almost daily. I started tripping pretty good by the end of dinner and cleared my plate to make my escape. Parents weren't done. They sat us down for an hour photo session, the first of its kind. I was beaming and giggling wildly, but felt safe and was actually enjoying myself. Fast forward 5 years later, and my buddy's mother handed me an awesome framed photo of my buddy and I while I was on my first trip. Edit, it was my college graduation present. She handed it to me moments after I swallowed 2 ecstasy pills and was leaving for another party. Boyfriend broke up with me out of the blue. Shortly after I turned 19, his 4 roommates around the same time had started to get annoyed with him about other stuff, and they were all buddies of mine as we'd partied together in residence. So, I go out to the strip club one night with a couple of girlfriends and run into those guys, and they start shit-talking my ex, telling me I deserve better. My already drunk self allows them to buy me a ton of tequila shots, enough that I get up on stage and take off all my clothes participating in amateur night. This is extremely out of character for me because I am a fairly innocent honors student who doesn't drink very much. So anyway, I win the $500 cash prize for the night, and the ex walks in to meet his roommates as I'm up on stage getting my prize. He then decided to tell me how embarrassing that was for him, as if expecting an apology, but I refused to give it. Fast forward to a year and a half later, where I have a new, great guy in my life, and he still tries to get me to hook up with him. 1 month into my first semester, the university hosted family weekend. The Friday night of that weekend, I was hanging out in the building next to mine. I wasn't drinking, but my friends were. 2 building complex. And a friend of mine wanted to hang out. I invited her over, no knowing that it was pouring out. She shows up drunk and soaked. I go to my room to get her some clothes, while unbeknownst to me, she steals drinks from the 8 other people in the room. I get back, she changes. The people I was with wanted to go to the club, but she didn't want to get rained on again, so I suggest we go back to my room. She agrees. We don't even make it out of the building before we're making out. We go to my room, sexy times commence, but don't get far. She was too drunk to be horizontal. I was unaware of this, having had 0 experience with drunk girls, and kept stopping. My roommate, whom I neglected to warn, walks into the room to find me on top of this girl. Luckily, his younger siblings weren't following too closely. I continue until she stands. At this point, I get worried. She looks around, then bolts full speed out of my door and barely manages to ask me where the bathroom was. I grab her shirt, she had a bra on, then run out after her. I find her outside on the stairwell, looking very confused but less panicked. I lead her to the bathroom, then wait, and wait, and wait some more. During my wait, I was informed that she had puked over the railing in the stairwell, barely missing a friend of mine. Eventually, a girl on her way out of the bathroom asked me if the girl passed out on the toilet was with me. I answer yes. The resident assistant was called, who then called public safety. By the time PS had showed up, the girl was awake but had no idea where she was. Didn't even remember her own room number, and still had no shirt. I gave her the shirt, but not before the hickeys started to show. I learned my lesson about those. PS takes her home. I visited her the next day and had to explain to her what had happened after she came over. She still wanted to hook up, but I missed that hint. I don't regret that. My roommate's siblings slept in different rooms, and I didn't meet them that weekend. He covered for me like a champ. Facing him in the morning was one of my most shameful moments. I was known for that incident for some time. This is still one of my favorite stories. When I was a freshman, I lived in a dorm at my state university. I had already been written up once during the year, and if I got in trouble again, I'd get kicked out. One night, me and my 2 friends went out to a highlighter party at a fraternity. For those who don't know, a highlighter party is where you show up in white clothes and write on people with highlighters under a bunch of black lights. Anyways, we all went and got pretty drunk. Around 1 in the morning, me and one of my friends decided that we wanted to leave to go smoke some pot. Now, my friend already had a joint rolled that we'd left back in my dorm. So, being in the stupid drunk 18-year-old phase that we were in, we decided it would be a great idea to just go smoke the thing in my dorm stairwell. I should mention that on the way back, we got rid of our shirts as they were covered in highlighter. We also had some glow sticks around our necks from the party. So we went ahead and smoked the joint, then headed back up to my room to chill out and meet up with my other friend. 5 minutes later, the campus police showed up. Apparently, someone had smelled the pot and followed us back to my room. Even in my cross-faded state, I was able to talk the police out of any charges. We had nothing on us, but there was still the matter of explaining to my resident director why we had reeked so heavily of weed. Knowing that I'd get kicked out of the dorms if I couldn't come up with a good excuse, I came up with one of the most brilliant stories of my life. I decided to tell the RD that my friend and I were secretly gay lovers and that we'd been making love in the stairwell. It explained pretty much everything. Why we were shirtless and wearing glow sticks. Why we came out of the stairwell giggling our asses off. Why I seemed very inarticulate and awkward when I was talking to the cops. I told my RD that I wasn't out of the closet yet and didn't know what to say. It was perhaps the most awkward 10-minute conversation of my life. She was clearly uncomfortable trying to ask all of her usual questions, and at one point had to ask me why there was so much noise coming from the stairwell. I could barely stop myself from bursting out in laughter. At the end of it all, she dropped all charges from my record and told me to come talk to her if I ever needed support with anything. And the kicker is, the whole time we were talking, I had my iPhone in my pocket recording the whole conversation so I'd have proof to show my friends. I was an RA one night after a huge campus-wide party. A few stragglers were wandering my hall with disco clothes on. Just for context on how ridiculous this night already was, I was naked in a robe and my ex-boyfriend was trying to get me back while my current one was in my room. My gay best friend was shirtless as always, watching this go down. One of my first years in particular was a huge problem for me. He'd only drink $12 handles of vodka to blacking out, and only alone. I had to talk to every 21-year-old in the dorm to stop them buying him booze, but he kept getting it. He was verbally abusive to me if I ever tried to talk to him about it, and was a constant source of douchebaggery. His roommate, one of the sweetest first-year boys I'd ever worked with, came back to his room late and found it locked. We all stopped what we were doing to pound on the door and wake up his tool bag of a roommate. When he finally roused and clicked the door open, we were all taken aback by the protrude smell within. The roommate was already back in bed by the time we gathered our wits, steeled our ducking courage and sense of smell, and turned on the light. There was shit everywhere. On the walls, the curtains, the ducking light switch my friend just hit. He gagged a little. All over the tool bag's bed for duck's sake. He'd just gotten shit-faced by himself and shat on everything. We groaned at him to wake up and made him shower while his traumatized roommate slept on my friend's beanbag chair. The next day, I tried to call up a residence coordinator to say we needed a surreptitious roommate transfer as the traumatized boy could not live with the tool bag anymore, but didn't want to hurt his feelings by letting him in on the process. She mixed up the roommates and severely offended the shit show instead of helping the traumatized boy. Not wanting to hurt his feelings further, the roommate decided to stay as long as shit show attended counseling. He didn't. Literal shit show on my dorm floor thanks to an alcoholic and emotionally abusive 18-year-old douchebag in front of an audience of people who were either naked, half naked, or dressed for a disco-themed party. I was that shit show freshman year. I pooped in my best friend's hamper in front of his small, incredibly nice, humble roommate, who had recently moved from rural China to the US and spoke very little English, while he was doing physics homework. In my defense, my friend had passed out in my own bed and didn't want to move. P.S. I wasn't nearly as much of an as your freshman kid you described. This only happened once, and I never hurt anyone else through getting blackout, except my ex. She was end of spring semester last year, we had a string of bomb threats for about a month straight. At one point, we were getting something like 5 bomb threats every day. So much class was missed that semester, it was ridiculous. People were not happy that they weren't getting the education they were paying for. Not to mention, it just had everyone on a pretty sharp edge. Also, a number of times, dorms were targeted at like 5 in the morning, so that sucked too. For my 21st birthday, my roommates and I threw an apartment party and had a group of friends over. We decided we wanted to keep it classy, so we decided that everyone on the guest list had to wear suits or dresses. About 2 a.m., Be a Man from Mulan started playing and everyone joined in. We were so loud that the neighbors called the cops, and my roommates had to go out in their evening gown and tuxedos to calm the cops down and deal with them, as I was far too drunk. Thank you for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, then make sure to like and subscribe. Also, feel free to comment any video idea you would like us to cover next.